From what I've gathered from your articles, this seems to be a global network that Epstein was a part of, and I believe there are multiple Epsteins. Like, I don't believe that Jeffrey
Oh,
Epstein was the head of
absolutely.
the snake. Yeah, like they never go after the head of the snake. They never go
Well,
after
the
the
head
head.
of the snake, quote unquote, are just, it's the billionaire class. And so there's a faction of these billionaires in our oligarchy. And of course, the American oligarchy, the American oligarchs don't necessarily, a lot of them don't have an allegiance necessarily to the United States.
A glittering socialite brand is suddenly brushing up against the most volatile case file in the country. For years, Paris Hilton was seen as a tabloid fixture with a tightly curated image, until her name drifted back into the Epstein storm, just as lawmakers argue over which records should be exposed and which should remain sealed. An allegation from a 2020 documentary has resurfaced, claiming that Ghislaine Maxwell once approached a gathering seeking younger women and allegedly described Hilton as perfect for Jeffrey Epstein. Hilton has firmly rejected the suggestion, saying she doesn't even recall meeting Maxwell and accusing critics of using her name for attention-grabbing headlines. The chronology raises eyebrows. In September 2000, Hilton was photographed at a New York fashion event alongside...
We've seen dozens of new photos we haven't seen before of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with very high-profile people, celebrities, people like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, like you showed, also like British royalty and actors. All of that we sort of knew was happening. I want to highlight specifically two for the public interest, and that is President Clinton and President Trump.
Maxwell, the allegation is... and Donald Trump. Fast forward to 2025. Congress approves the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The Justice Department hints at releasing millions of documents, then delays. Officials first imply explosive revelations, then state there's no official client list. The mixed messaging fuels suspicion. If there is nothing incriminating to uncover, why do disclosures arrive in fragments? Why do official denials sound like strategic containment rather than clarity? This feels less like random gossip and more like an establishment tightening its defenses before another wave hits. The allegation itself isn't new. What changes is the velocity with which it returns. In the 2020 documentary series Surviving Jeffrey Epstein, composer Christopher Mason recounts a story. A friend allegedly stood beside Ghislaine Maxwell at a party while she surveyed the room for younger women to introduce to Jeffrey Epstein. According to Mason, Maxwell noticed a young socialite, called her perfect for Epstein, and sought an introduction. That socialite was identified as Paris Hilton. When the episode first aired, the anecdote flared briefly in entertainment media, then dissolved into the constant churn of headlines. Now, amid renewed political friction over sealed investigative files, the clip circulates again, sharpened, reframed, and injected with fresh urgency. Hilton addressed it in an interview with The Times, stating, "I don't even remember ever meeting her." The response reads understated, almost offhand, but timing alters tone. When millions of pages are promised yet delayed.
The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted sex offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redactions.
Even a casual dismissal lands differently. Context amplifies everything. Then there's a photograph dated September 18, 2000. It captures Hilton standing beside Maxwell and Donald Trump at the Ann and John fashion show in New York City. The image makes no claims. It levels no accusations. It simply documents proximity. Three public figures sharing space at a social event years before formal scrutiny intensified. In March 2005, police in Palm Beach began building a case involving allegations of unlawful conduct with a minor, eventually presenting findings to a grand jury. That legal timeline is distinct from a fashion show snapshot, yet the human mind connects dots. A single frame becomes shorthand. Presence morphs into implication. Those close to the situation argue that reading significance into one photograph is speculative. Critics respond that social networks are rarely random. Official statements emphasize coincidence. The public conversation leans toward pattern recognition. This friction intensifies each time the Justice Department signals another document release. Each time lawmakers call for broader transparency, The image remains static. Its meaning does not. It expands and contracts with every new disclosure, every withheld page, every denial that sounds, depending on perspective, either routine or rehearsed. What's resurfacing isn't just an anecdote or a photograph. It's the unresolved gravity of a case that continues to pull old moments back into orbit. Hilton's second comment.
I know, but we have a congressional act now to requiring the release, but they're going to say, you know
subject
what?
To
Tom
redaction.
Hanks, it's unfair that he was mentioned because
the law
he was eating
says
Skittles.
Subject to redaction. Subject to redaction.
And we all know what that means. That's to protect.
That's why I'm saying you will never be satisfied with what's released.
Carries more force than first. I'm such a good clickbait name. The line feels knowing, almost dismissive, and it subtly reframes the allegation as media opportunism. If she is simply headline fuel, then the story becomes spectacle rather than substance. Yet the anecdote about recruitment did not originate on a gossip site. It appeared within Surviving Jeffrey Epstein, a produced series examining a criminal network already scrutinized in federal court. The legal timeline underscores that gravity. In July 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges in New York. He died in custody the following month. In July 2020, Ghislaine Maxwell was charged. By December 2021, she was convicted on multiple counts. And in June 2022, she received a 20-year sentence. Those milestones were not tabloid cycles.
This just broke moments ago. The Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. We're getting dribs and drabs of this, and we had some pictures already, and here's some. There are some that show Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, and others. None of the released images depicts any misconduct. None is believed to depict underage girls. It was not immediately clear when or where they were.
And this is where people started.
They were courtroom proceedings with lasting consequences. Against that backdrop, Hilton's self-description as clickbait is interpreted in divergent ways. Some observers see strategic downplaying, reducing a serious-sounding claim to media noise. Others hear a deliberate distancing from a narrative she rejects. The tension lies in timing. As Congress advances the Epstein Files Transparency Act through late 2025, the political struggle over records intensifies. In February 2025, Attorney General Pam Bondi suggested during a television interview that an Epstein client list was on her desk. Weeks later, the Justice Department distributed binders labeled declassified to influencers, though much of the content was already public.